lost this point anyway. So
Yes, and I'm gonna take a look here at openers and looking at Jimmy's
stop.
hand, who's up.
Hammer time.
That wasn't funny.
It sounded like laughter to me.
All right, we're taking a look. Looks like Nathan Happy Keep has like a lightning bolt in hand, so an answer to an early threat. And Jimmy gonna start things off right away.
Sigarda's aid. Yep. This is gonna be cool actually, because so far we've seen 3 matches. They've all been very similar matchups. 2 Murktide decks, and then we have Murktide Elementals, and then the Ross's,
Jeskai Breach.
Jeskai Breach, sort of Murktide
Grinding Station, whatever you want to.
Yeah, so Hammer Time bringing a little something different here to the equation. Deck that can kill very, very fast, but can grind also with Urza Saga too.
Yeah, so we see Stoneforge Mystic coming down onto the battlefield here and finding a hammer. So Nathan's saying, you know what, I got to take care of that real quick. I'm just gonna bolt the Stoneforge Mystic here before we do any more work.
Yeah, with hammer in hand and Sigarda's aid in play, anything is a major threat. Needs to be dealt with. So Nathan, once again here on the back foot, on the draw, and we'll see if he can wiggle his way out of it.
Yeah, it's a scary place to be, I feel like. We'll see what he has here. Definitely a little behind on the draw.
Yeah, one of the issues the Murktide deck has, of course, is that all its removal is damage based. So as you're saying in the last mirror matchup, once that Shredder gets to a 7 toughness creature, kind of hard to kill, and then a hammer is pretty big as well. So a hammer on literally anything is going to be almost impossible for Nathan to remove.
Yeah, Nathan playing an island and just passing the turn back, keeping up counterspell here as Jimmy plays down an Urza Saga on chapter 1.
Oh yeah, max punishment here in every sense of the word. We see the Saga comes down as an uncounterable threat, and a creature, and another creature. The hammer's still in hand. The aid's there. Oh boy.
Yeah, counterspell going to take care of that Stoneforge Mystic, and Jimmy just passing the turn back to Nathan, who has moved an expressive iteration to the front. Also has a Ledger Shredder, a couple lands, and a couple of Mishra's Baubles.
Yeah, now interesting choice here. So Jimmy could have just played the hammer on his turn and equipped to the Ornithopter, and there'd be a 10-12 in play. It'd be very hard for Nathan to feel. Now, normally you don't want to play your instance,
right.
You want to play it as instant speed, obviously, as a trick or on the opponent's turn, but Nathan was tapped out and the window was there. And now if he goes for the pump at some other point, Nathan can possibly respond. So we'll see how that plays out. So looking very good there with the Saga in play and the threat of the hammer looming.
Right, knowing that Nathan has cards like Counterspell and Spell Pierce and things in hand.
And the Murktide decks do occasionally play maybe 1 or 2 copies of the card Archmage's Charm, which could steal the Ornithopter in that respect. But it's usually between 0 and 1 copies, if that. So maybe playing around that. And it obviously has the Saga in play too. And the Saga's going to make some tokens as well. So a lot of good things going on for Jimmy right now.
All right, Mishra's Bauble from Nathan's side. Going to look at the top of Jimmy's deck. And we see that Ledger Shredder.
Nathan has cast.
If he forgot to connive.
Nathan has cast like a bajillion baubles this tournament. Yeah.
Right. I feel like every opening hand he's had like 3 baubles.
Right, so here's the end step hammer.
End step hammer.
And even though the shields are not down for Nathan, there's nothing there. We got a huge Thopter.
Nathan drawing 2 off of the Mishra's Baubles triggers, but Jimmy seems to be firmly in the driver's seat here.
Yeah, this is looking really bad for Nathan. Even without the Ornithopter, just having Sigarda's aid resolved in play and the Saga available also is very, very good. But 10's a lot.
10 is a lot.
It's a decent amount of damage.
When, especially as we had said earlier, this isn't Murktide.
How about 20? Is that more than 10? More than 10, maybe more than 14 as well.
I mean, it is overkill because Nathan being at 14. So.
Yeah, just totally unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
Just attack for 10 twice. Show some respect for the game,
As we move into sideboards here. Now, what is Nathan going to be looking for to keep this Azuri's Hammer deck in check?
So we saw the Blood Moons there, very, very clutch against Urza Saga. Saga's an important one, because Saga, actually, we don't see the Blood Moons. You see the dress downs, actually, which is also very important against Saga. But the point being that Saga is a very, very important card to handle because it's an uncounterable threat, makes multiple threats, and finds the hammers. So if you can try and keep that offline, an easy way to kill the construct is pretty important. It's important for Nathan to get out to a fast draw here. But the Hammer deck has a bunch of really cheap creatures to block Ragavan as well. Memnite in and out of Hammer decks occasionally may or may not be on the list, but even then, just playing Esper Sentinel, a bunch of cheap creatures, so blocking Ragavan is definitely a thing. We see some Braids there, some Fury looks pretty good as well. So I think this is on Nathan here to kind of get out, try and get under the Hammer deck, because the Hammer deck has the ability to kill you on turn 2. But the late game stuff's pretty good too. So definitely gonna be important for Nathan to have the kill spells there. He did not have it that game, even though Jimmy did give him a little bit of a window there to kill that Ornithopter. But we'll see. And a Braid will help too, also being able to actually kill the hammers.
It looks like removing a lot of the counter magic here in spell pierces and counter spells, as well as shaving some ledger shredders.
Yeah, I mean the counter spells are tough. Most of the cards in Hammer cost 1. So you're trying to use the card counter spell to counter them. It's not very efficient. And then Spell Pierce can't hit any of the creatures also. So I'm a little surprised to see Spell Pierce removed, honestly, because it does still counter Sigarda's Aid and counter a Hammer itself. But going to rely a little more on removal spells here.
Yes, and we see both players ready to head into game number 2 here. The SCGCon 20K, modern 20K.
Yeah, $20,000 on the line. A couple RC invites, top 4.
Yeah,
RC is in I believe it's qualifies for the one in San Diego, but it might be for the next one. Actually, I'm not sure about. The one in Dallas, but
I think it might be the
RC
California.
is the path to the Pro Tour.
You
get top 48 at the RC, qualify for the Pro Tour, and
also could be a path to Worlds, right?
That's true. That's right. First and second place at the RC qualifies for Worlds. So Paper Magic is back. We got a little OP structure here again, which is super exciting and great to see. Pro Tour was awesome a few weeks ago. And just good seeing people shuffling up cards again and playing Magic.
Yes, it does. And we are ready here for game number 2. Nathan behind here, but going to be on the play. So how big is the play here?
It's pretty important. Yeah, the Murktide deck just in general is pretty important. If you're playing a Ragavan deck, the play is pretty important. Ragavan on the play versus Ragavan on the draw is night and day in some matchups, but still very important.
You see some of Nathan's sideboard magic here in engineered explosives.
That is a really good one.
So
explosives is not only a good answer to Saga tokens, but can also kill Sigarda's, can kill hammers, kill 1-drops, and lots of stuff.
Yep. So explosive, I got Unholy Heat, Mishra's Bauble, and a Consider with 3 lands. Is this a solid hand from Nathan here?
It's very reactive, but I would say the explosives is probably one of the best cards that Nathan has access to. There's a Consider in there, right? You'll find whatever you want.
Let's see, Jimmy mulliganing down to 6, so I'm going to take a look at a 7-card hand here and decide. It looks like Double Plains, Arid Mesa, Stoneforge Mystic, a Springleaf Drum, an Ornithopter, and a Sigarda's Aid.
Looks pretty good, yeah.
And
got the Aid, the creatures, the Stoneforge.
Happy to ship back that fetch land here. So still 2 lands in hand. How well does Hammer deck mulligan? Pretty well.
Esper Sentinel helps out a lot there. The Urza Saga, it's not really a combo deck, like a pure combo deck. Obviously, you can kill on turn 2. You are assembling this combo of Sigarda's Aid and Hammer, but there are a lot of good fair cards in the deck too. So you are kind of looking for the right pieces, but you also want some card quantity. But cards like Sentinel do help with that a lot.
We see Ornithopter, Springleaf Drum, the plays from Jimmy, and then Sigarda's Aid coming down. So Nathan's got to be
That's what I was saying about Spell Pierce. A Spell Pierce here would have been huge. But Nathan disagrees. So
we see Consider drawing a Murktide Regent for Nathan here. So not going to the bin with that one, and then drawing a land for turn, or a counter spell in hand. So looking to leave that one up, playing a Scalding Tarn and passing the turn back. We see Teferi on the side of Jimmy. Teferi very good against these Murktide decks.
Yeah, and has the drum to cast it as well. We're going to go for Stoneforge first. So, we're in the spot now where I think Nathan has to counter almost everything. And, of course, Stoneforge getting a hammer is very scary, too.
Right. And we see Counterspell is going to take care of that Stoneforge Mystic. So, to the bin it goes. And that looks like that was Jimmy's turn, too, whether or not he has another 1-mana play to follow that up with.
Yeah, this is the thing where any naturally drawn hammer is so good for Jimmy here. The Nathan just living in fear. It's all right. You got a Thopter, you got a mana, you got a Sigarda's Aid. At any point, this could be a 10-10.
Right.
Or 10-12.
Nathan can breathe because Jimmy just passes the turn back. So back to Nathan we go. And after the deck is cut, Nathan's going to draw for turn. And we see an Unholy Heat in Nathan's hand as well.
So a few kill spells now as a bolt there also.
Island Engineered Explosives here on 1.
Also not bad. Now, interesting
Pretty good.
choice though. I guess so. Nathan passing the turn.
Mhm.
This would allow Jimmy to possibly use Cigar as aid, but obviously the explosive can blow up the hammer too.
Right.
So a little bit of a cat and mouse here as far as who's going to do what when.
We'll see if Jimmy is willing to commit anything else to this board now with the engineer explosives out in the open. It's there, there's no questioning it. So Jimmy now is going to want to get Nathan to blow that up while Jimmy still has other resources in hand.
Yeah, and honestly, just playing a non one mana thing is pretty good. Nefari's a pretty good one here, and the question is, what do you do with it?
Yeah, and as Jimmy is deciding here.
Now, if you go down, you get to draw a card, but there isn't anything good to bounce here anyway.
Right.
And then going up defends against Lightning Bolt and Holy Heat and so on and so forth. And very, very important card to have in play because the oh boy.
Oh boy.
All right, so we see a minus here on the explosives. Nathan stacks it in response, which fizzles the ability, so there's no draw either.
But I mean, that could be in Jimmy's grand scheme of things. So I tried to get Nathan to blow up this engineered explosive so he can safely play the rest of his hand, maybe a second cigar to aid or a hammer or something like that. So Jimmy, knowing that he can't play out the namesake of his deck while that explosives is on the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, it forced the action on explosives, but at very, very heavy cost. Still lost the cigar to aid, still lost the drum. Lose it very now to any of your burn spell, being at 1 loyalty. So that's a rough one. The choice there, I mean, plusing Teferi up to 5 keeps it mostly safe from things, and you kind of just keep playing a longer game. Now the board's been forced, and now they're coming to the mid game here. Both players not having much, but Nathan has 2 lands to Jimmy's. I'm sorry, Nathan has 4 lands to Jimmy's 2, and now you're going to Murktide. I'm just going to probably seal the deal here, honestly.
So Ornithopter, Murktide.
Yeah, need a hammer. By itself, Ornithopter not really good enough.
Oh boy, as a 6/6 Murktide Regent, and Jimmy, remember, was also on the mulligan here. So there's another cigar to aid. Now, there is the hammer.
Maybe he was setting it up. Oh, the big setup
and the letdown, but. This Murktide is getting in for 6, so Jimmy down to 14. It still is going to take a few swings from this Murktide, so Jimmy has a few draws here.
Yeah, I mean, there's still the aid in play, but not a lot else going on. So it cost a lot of resources to set that up, and Nathan had the perfect answer.
Yes, he did, as Nathan gets across once again. Oh, we see Giver of Runes on Jimmy's side here. Would have liked that earlier to protect the Ornithopter.
Yep.
Dragon's Rage Channeler also from Nathan. So doubling up on the amount of threats, we see Inkmoth Nexus being played on Jimmy's side. And saying, you know what, I can't go through with this, so we got to move on to game number 3 here. So well played by Nathan.
Yeah, that explosive is very, very clutch.
Yes.
As we said in the opener, that's a really important card in the matchup. There's a lot of really good things that we saw there. Being able to mop up the Sigarda's aid and, an Esper Sentinel and a drum and a this and a that, and then also have the utility to kill the Urza Saga tokens is huge.
Now, do you think Nathan will have any consideration for a card like Spell Pierce here in game number 3?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that the Pierces came out. They are a little worse in the draw though. Because, on the play, you play land go and they cast their cards, you spell pierce it. On the draw, a lot of the important cards cost 1.
Yeah.
But even then, I still think it's an important card in the matchup. So we can see boarding it out or boarding it back in and then cutting a Ragavan on the draw.
Right. So a single Ragavan looks like coming out and putting in a single spell pierce in its place. And reconsidering things here. Going to take a little look through. See if there's anything else he would like to pull out.
Looking for something. Haven't found it yet. Nope. Gotta go down to 3 Ragavan, which makes sense, honestly. There's a lot of blockers on the play for Jimmy here. Even a Stoneforge Mystic, just something. So
I mean, Ragavan in general is just a little more underwhelming on the draw.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. Jimmy looks like he's all ready for game number 3 here. And which one of these players is going to claim their first win of the day?
Yeah, that is true. One of the results of having a match like this where we have focused on a certain players is that you're kind of locked in. And if
Oh,
Nathan's
yeah.
having a rough day, we're here to see it. And this is a knockout match for
Right?
top 8, essentially. Being I'm sorry, that's not true. It's a
No.
2-day event.
2
I'm
days.
thinking sorry, my bad.
You're thinking of the
But
one day like
I mean,
X and 2.
it's an emotional knockout match. You start your tournament
Sure.
at 3, you might as well be heading to the bar.
Right.
So no, not
Gonna
a
go tour Charlotte.
technically, yeah. Not technically a knockout match, but it feels like one.
Mhm. That's when you go scout out the restaurant you're gonna have dinner at.
Yeah, it's like, all right, let's start taking to open up Yelp here and see what's going on in the area.
We see in Nathan's opener another engineered explosive, couple lands, some counter spells, counter magic going on, Mishra's Bauble, and looks like Jimmy shipping back his opener while Nathan is happy to keep.
Yeah, I mean, again, the one of explosives showing up for Nathan, and it's a real important one.
Yeah, and we'll see if this 7 works out better for Jimmy. I'm taking a look. It looks like Double Plains, Urza Saga, a Sigarda's Aid, a Stoneforge Mystic.
It's a good hand.
And yeah, so
A big one here is
not that
honestly
bad.
turn 1 Esper Sentinel, which is exceedingly good in the matchup anyway, but you see Nathan has no answer to it.
Right.
So if that Sentinel draws a card or two, that is real good.
All right. And it is a turn 1 Esper Sentinel, something that Nathan has been able to avoid in games 1 and 2 so far, but is going to get hit hard here in game 3.
Yeah, really powerful card. A lot of the draw of his Hammer deck being a really good Sentinel deck and a really good Urza Saga deck. And those are the things that make it not a one-trick pony. You're not just like trying to do this Hammer thing, and if you don't, you're going to lose. Like, you get to draw cards, you get to make tokens, you get to grind, and it's got an impressive amount of grind to it for a deck that looks like an infect deck from back in the day.
Right. It's not as linear as it seems. But Nathan deciding what to do here, because this is a big deal. It's like, do you just try to kill this Esper Sentinel right away and just be like, you know what, draw your 1 card. That's it. I just don't want to see it again. Like, is it worth you? It looks like Ragavan's going to come down here on Nathan's side.
It looks like the options were either explosives on 1, let your opponent draw a card, or play Ragavan. Like, playing Ragavan's pretty good here, honestly. Ragavan, it's important to note that the Ragavan, you think of it running away with the game, it hits your opponent, yada, yada, yada. If you just play Ragavan and attack with it and trade, that's a lightning bolt.
Right.
That's still really good. So like if the Ragavan trades with the Stoneforge or the Esper Sentinel here, that's not a bad exchange. You think about this like Ragavan sub game. I want to get my Ragavan in and kill your stuff, but like that's still not a bad fail state, which is why the card is so good.
Right. And we see Stoneforge Mystic coming into play here. That resolves, fetches up a Colossal Hammer for Jimmy. And it's a pretty good turn too. It's pretty good 1-2 punch here as for Sentinel into Stoneforge Mystic. So Nathan's going to have a hard time removing either as Ragavan gets into the red zone.
So it seems like a pretty easy Stoneforge block, but again, Nathan has to be kind of okay with that exchange realistically. Also, if Nathan wants to get this explosives on 1 going online here too, and getting Ragavan to trade with something that doesn't cost 1 is pretty good.
Right.
So important use there of like understanding the relative value of cards rather than the in a vacuum value of the cards. Ragavan's great, but in this spot, it's going to do this job that it's supposed to do.
And it looks like Mishra's Bauble going to be the follow up for Nathan.
Got to pay the 1.
Going to pay the 1.
Got to pay your taxes.
Paying the Esper Sentinel tax. And Misty Rainforest going to be played on that side. And Engineered Explosives we will see come down on 1. So because it is the second non-creature turn spell of the turn. Esper Sentinel will not draw a card. I'm going to fetch up that island and pass the turn back to Jimmy. So shields are down. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, obviously if it's like land, Sigarda's Aid, Hammer, you're dead, sure. But I think realistically, this is Nathan's gonna get to untap here, use the explosives, and now Jimmy's in the squeeze of like, well, how much stuff can I play into his explosives?
Right. And especially again, already on the mulligan. So we'll see Urza Saga coming down. Tapping 2.
For pure Steel
Paladin. Yeah, that's a powerful card and doesn't die to explosives on 1.
That's true. Yeah. It allows draws, of course, off of the equipment plays as well. So again, more kind of card draw. It's a combo piece in that it equips Hammer to things, but drawing the cards is huge too.
That's right. And Passing back to Nathan, Unholy Heat in hand. Couple of counter spells. A little slow here, it feels like, but no third land.
There are actually 2 explosives in Nathan's deck. I thought I
Oh,
only saw 1. We got the mismatched arts here,
mismatched arts.
but very, very powerful. But yeah, definitely not too much going on here. And normally, Nathan wouldn't mind being the control deck, but now there's an Urza Saga in play.
Hmm. We'll see. It looks like Jimmy's deciding what to do to kick off his turn number 4 here. Urza Saga currently on the second chapter, so able to make some of those constructs. It looks like as for Sentinel and Pure Steel Paladin, just going to get into the red zone. Nathan's at 15.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like much, but I mean, realistically, 15 life, 3 damage, like, gonna force some action here.
Right? Chipping away. And, eventually it could make a single hammer lethal as well.
Mhm.
So getting to that 10 or below, very important.
It just feels more like a grindy Urza Saga game to me than a Boss Hammer game. Although strange here, Jimmy's gonna replace the Pure Steel Paladin and take down the mana for Urza Saga.
Yeah. So it looks like, playing the second Pure Steel Paladin, Nathan was happy to Unholy Heat the first one and just passing the turn as Nathan misses third land drop once again. So that's keeping Nathan from being able to play out a threat and hold up counterspell at the same time.
Yeah, I'm very surprised here to not see a token over the Pure Steel Paladin. So wanting to get the Paladin play, but leaving a little value on the table.
Yeah.
And
It's like going to make a construct this time around.
so we have the Chapter 3 trigger of a stack, the Construct trigger of a stack, and now an Unholy Heat trigger of a stack as well.
Yeah, that's going to take care of that Pure Steel Paladin, paying the tax for Esper Sentinel as well. And construct, here it is.
I am Karn.
Not an entirely impressive one at the moment, just a 2/2, but has room to grow.
About to be a 3/3, and we'll see what Jimmy wants to get here. Of course, getting a card that costs 0 or 1, any card that costs 1 gets tagged by explosives. So we'll see what Jimmy's got going here.
Yeah, that's right. Jimmy taking a look at the hand real quick. We know there's a hammer and basic land in hand as the moment. Has 3 or 4 cards in hand though. So, Shadow Spear.
Okay, so I think that's like trying to get something that's not super useful, so if it gets blown up, whatever, but also has some value. It grows the construct.
Right.
Maybe a little life gain here or there too, but
Could increase the tax on Esper Sentinel.
that's true. That is true.
As the second Urza Saga comes down here. Oh boy.
That's powerful. Yeah, I mean, chaining sagas here is really, really good, especially with Nathan on the back foot. Nathan does have explosives number 2 in play, so Nathan can pop it on 0 and grow and kill all these constructs. We see the equip here. Gonna go on the
Esper Sentinel.
Sentinel, so a little taxing, like you were saying, pump that tax up.
Yeah, and getting in for 2 here as well. And has life link, so Jimmy gonna gain a little life there, whether or not it's important. We'll wait.
I mean, honestly, Nathan doesn't need to kill Jimmy, and the longer these sagas have to keep trying to doing their thing,
Yep. Pass back and to Nathan once again. Nathan drew an expressive iteration, but can't cast that and keep up, counter magic or anything like that.
Pretty risky. So Nathan's playing defensively here, but you gotta make some land drops. You're not gonna win the game, So with a bolt in play in hand, also,
Yeah, and I mean this the Urza Saga getting bigger, ready to make more constructs that are only going to grow each other as well. So you see, this is an attack for 5.
All right, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm. Boom goes the dynamite, down to 1 on that construct.
Yep.
I think that dice is there. Doesn't actually have counters. It's just to show exactly how big it is.
Yep.
And see if Jimmy has a follow up here, anything he'd like to do, or is he going to leave that Urza Saga up to be able to make a construct? It looks like that's the deal.
Yeah, we already passed it up. Nathan's got to figure out what to do here. Now, of course, explosives on 0 is very good here.
Yes.
Mobbing up these constructs. Jimmy could have opted to make it the construct in combat to do an extra point of damage. Decided to leave the mana up to have a little more options.
And Nathan does hit his third land drop here. So an explosives on 0 wouldn't cost Nathan anything except for knowledge on Jimmy's side. So Jimmy is at, Nathan could just say any construct you make from here on out, I'm just gonna blow up, or
Yeah. A lot of work to do on Nathan's side.
yes, yes, there is.
It's a pretty stocked hand, double counterspell.
Lightning bolt, expressive iteration,
Is it a Murktide in the
and
front
a
left? So
Murktide. Yep,
I mean,
a
Murktide's a
Murktide.
huge one. So I think
Right.
there's a lot of pressure on Nathan to try and find land number 4 here. It can be Murktide plus counterspell. So I mean, iteration. Honestly, iteration here. If it finds a land, you should play explosives on 0 also. You can play
Yes.
explosives on 0, have counterspell up, and have explosives up, and have Murktide next turn, and have counterspell on that too.
We'll see. And Nathan also he agrees. It's time. It's time to deploy the threat.
Yeah, I guess Nathan played the fiery of his turn, right?
Right.
So okay, so
That was his third.
couldn't be a 4th land drop.
He had missed his 3rd land drop for some time and finally drew it this past turn, so was able to play the fiery islet, and is going to make a decent sized Murktide here. We're looking at a 5/5.
Looks like Jimmy's not gonna make a token on the end step.
That's interesting. Maybe forgot.
Yeah, it's hard to think of a reason not to, but gonna make one here on the 3rd chapter trigger.
Yep. So that construct, they will both be 2/2s here. A little outclassed by the flying 5/5 at the moment.
Yeah, and then of course, once next turn rolls around, we're gonna see Nathan play the explosives on 0, mop all this stuff up, and then now it's a clock in play.
Right.
So Murktide can get in and start, closing this game out.
So up goes Urza Saga. Jimmy is going to take a look through his deck, and what will Urza Saga 3rd chapter fetch up here? We've already seen the Shadow Spear come down. There's always hammers. I suppose there's spring leaf drums and things like that, but not much.
I wonder if there's an Aether Spellbomb in there.
Ooh.
There's blue mana in this deck, obviously, and Spellbomb is a pretty good answer to Murktide.
I guess we'll find out.
Can't get that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's got to cost 0 or 1.
Yeah, so while the mana value of Sentinel is 1,
right.
you get a card that costs exactly a 0 mana colorless mana symbol or a 1 colorless mana symbol.
Yeah, there's it's limited choices. So hammer, springleaf drum, maybe like what else could this deck have in it? It's springleaf drum. It is
drumming it up. Of course, one of those tokens is summoning 6. So
right. It's a great source of colored mana here. Player's going to pause for a second there. So Jimmy's already drawn for turn. These are now 3/3s. As the dice go up.
Pump them up.
Pump them up. Springleaf drum, good for something here. Let's see if he has a follow-up play. I'm going to tap 1 and a white for a Stoneforge Mystic.
Okay.
Taking a look through the deck, and I mean, is it a hammer here? They play metal cysts and things like that.
Gonna be a call. Gonna go for the fair plan. And again, once again, like I was saying, this hammer deck has a pretty good fair plan between Urza Saga, Stoneforge, Caldera.
Yes.
Not too shabby, and it does make a germ, which I think it actually gives indestructible. But regardless, we see the bolt take out the Stoneforge, so 7 mana is a lot. To actually hard cast that one, which is of course the downside to that card.
Yes. So the equipped creature gets +5/+5. First strike, trample, indestructible, haste. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature.
All right, so we're going to see the Murktide stay home.
Yeah, I mean, Murktide stayed home. Just, doesn't want to get comboed out. Is at 10 now. Had to take the 1 off the fiery islet to so that Nathan dropped down. So afraid to die, get cheesed out here. So just going to play the engineered explosives. That's sort of like a safety valve and say go. Does something in this game.
It seems pretty hard to die here with the explosives in play. I guess just doesn't want to be priced into having to use the explosives, so he can leave counterspell up. But even then, though, the blocks aren't great regardless. Murktide's a 5/5. We see here the constructs can be a 4/4 with the Nexus or whatever, and any more artifacts can grow them as well.
Nathan just blocking one of the constructs. Not going to blow anything up.
All right. So Jimmy didn't present enough of a threat to force the explosives.
These constructs, I mean, the one that is left is only a 2/2. End of turn, Nathan's saying, okay, that's enough for me. I'm just going to blow up the other one. So going to take 3, but then happy to blow up the one that's left.
All right, and now with the counter spells in hand, this game is rapidly approaching its conclusion. Despite the light titles looking a little lopsided, Nathan is firmly in control here.
Right. Now, what does Jimmy need to like get back into this game here? Is there a combination of cards? I see a hammer in hand. There's an Esper Sentinel and the Cauldron Complete that we know about. Double Ink Moth Nexus on the battlefield. Oh, Esper Sentinel getting counterspelled, so that not even hitting the battlefield.
Yeah, Sentinel doesn't seem super threatening here, honestly. I mean, there's a hammer in hand, so obviously, you get one shot with the Nexus that could be a little rough.
Right.
But Nathan has counter spells and rule spells to try and deal with that. So Jimmy does have some time.
As Ink Moth Nexus, it does get across. 1 damage, 1 poison.
Gotta get that poison on the overlay. Usually don't need to track poison with hammer because usually it's either 10 or 0 poison. So
Right.
just ends the game on the spot.
Are you dead or are you not?
Oh, there it is. Look at
there
that.
it is.
I don't know why I even questioned the coverage. My
Right?
bad. My bad. Ants is all over it.
Especially with all these toxic things happening in
I know, right?
standard. You got to be ready for the poison counters. As we see Murktide region get in the red zone again, and that's 5 more damage. So Jimmy down to 12. There is double Ink Moth Nexus on the side of Jimmy. The question is like, is there a combination of cards here that gets him back in?
Yeah, I mean, the next eye do block also if necessary. So each next
Right.
eye is effectively a time walk.
All right, that's
Just like the mighty Ornithopter.
That's 7 mana. Does he feel comfortable deploying a Cauldron?
Looks like it might be. Here comes the big boy.
Into 4 open mana.
Boom.
That's brave.
The thing is, though, that like this is honestly fine because you kind of want Nathan to counter this because that doesn't even win the race against the Murktide. Actually, it does.
Yes.
It wins the race against Murktide. It's close, but now there's still a hammer in hand for Jimmy, and if Jimmy draws a cigar to his aid, might be able to just get the one shot gun.
Yes.
It's important to note also that the Inkmoth Nexus is not toxic. It is Infect. Infect does not deal the actual damage. So even though Nathan's at 6, you can't just turn out 3 turns of Nexus attacking to win the game. It only deal poison counters. So
we'll see. Expressive Iteration finding a bolt. And will that bolt go upstairs, or will it kill the Ornithopter?
I mean, I think Nathan's trying to see if he can find lethal here. Bolt plus another Murktide might do it.
Yeah, down to 9, and it looks like bolting the Ornithopter. Going to get in. This is still a healthy attack. 5 damage. I guess the bolt going upstairs would cut down how many turns needed.
Yeah.
Jimmy is at 7. The bolt would have him at 4, which would mean Murktide would be lethal by itself next turn. Jimmy kind of mulling over his choices here. I mean, he does have the double Ink Moth Nexuses. Like you said, they can block.
Yeah, we see Nathan's hand of Counterspell, Expressive Iteration, and Otawara. So Otawara and Counterspell do cover a lot of bases.
That they do. Here is that second Murktide we were talking about. Jimmy with a little nod of the head saying, oh gosh.
Yeah. That's going to be rather large. Now, there
coming.
are multiple Nexi and Blade of Block. So
right. So the first Murktide will grow by, I think it was the full 5.
That's big.
That is a large Murktide. This is an attack for lethal. So Jimmy priced into blocking. Gonna remove one of those +1/+1 counters because the infect damage does give the creatures -1/-1.
It's a hero block.
Hero block. Murder block.
Nathan's got the counterspell. Nathan plays the Otawara too.
But Jimmy's saying that's enough. This guy's got the one more chump blocker, but not going to get there. So Nathan will take down his first one of the day.
Yeah, on the board.
On the board.